Okay, well, I'm very glad to be here at the Teater Albatross, and I'm also a little bit nervous about giving this talk because it's going to be about the Congo, but there are some of you here from the Congo, there are others of you who have lived there, and I'm sure that many of you know more about this particular piece of history than I do. Basically, the pictures I'm going to show you take you through the history of the Congo with concentration on the period when it was the private colony of King Leopold II, because that's the story that I told you in my book, which some of you have read. One of the frustrations that I had in writing that book, and I feel the same thing in talking about it now and in showing images of it, is that the materials that historians have easy access to, the documents, the letters, the photographs, and so forth, so much tell the story from Europeans' point of view. And one of the things that you can see from the map is that the extent to which, and Espen talked about this too, the whole area is networked with rivers. Because the Congo River, which flows, of course, in that big loop from the lower right of the picture up and then around and down and off to the sea at the left, has all these smaller tributary rivers flowing into it, mostly from the southeast to the northwest. Together, they make an interconnected network of something like 9,000 miles, 9,000 kilometers of navigable river. So once steamboats could be gotten onto that river, it was a built-in transportation system. It was like conquering a country with its railway system intact. And for an ambitious colonialist like Leopold, he saw this as a means to great wealth. What he was initially interested in was ivory. This was something that was highly valued in Europe and the United States. Before the days of plastic, it was used for some of the things that we use plastic for today. False teeth, piano keys, all kinds of other things that could be carved into different shapes. Ivory also was an attractive commodity for somebody who, like Leopold, wanted to make a lot of money fast because it had very high value, but it was not bulky. Two men acting as porters could carry one or two of these ivory tusks on their shoulders. It was a source of tremendous wealth for him. But this was an entire system where the Africans who did the labor, who carried the ivory tusks to the coast, who cut the fuel for the steamboats that ran on the river, who served as soldiers in King Leopold's private army, they were all forced to do so. The entire system from the beginning was built on forced labor, and that was underlain by corporal punishment, this whip called the shikot, which you can see being used on a man here, although Espen tells me that the authenticity of this photograph is somewhat in doubt. However, there are numerous photographs, paintings, eyewitness accounts of this whip being used in tremendous frequency as the basis of forcing people to work in this forced labor system. This existence of this forced labor system posed a tremendous problem for the indigenous African kings and chiefs who had previously ruled this area. This was a picture that I found of a man who was chief of the Kwango people at the time of Leopold's colonization. And I like to think, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I'm just imagining something, that in the sadness of his eyes, one can read the dilemma that indigenous African leaders faced at this time. If they fought back against the colonists, if they resisted Leopold's private army, it was certain death, because the Europeans had rifles, machine guns, modern weaponry. If they submitted to the system, allowed their people to be conscripted and used as forced laborers, that was also a different kind of death, a much slower one, but it was certainly a system that many people did not survive. So very early on, not just in the Congo, but in all of Central Africa, but it was really harshest in the Congo, this system of running the colony by means of forced labor was very firmly established. However, nothing was known or written about this in the rest of the world, where King Leopold, who was extremely skilled at public relations, a genius at public relations. In fact, he could teach today's American tobacco companies some lessons in public relations. He managed to persuade everybody that he was a great philanthropist. He was in Africa to bring Christianity and civilization. And most people believed this. However, the first crack in the veneer, the first expose of what Leopold was doing, was written by a very little-known black American, George Washington Williams, who Robert referred to in the play last night. Williams was an American. He was a veteran of the American Civil War. He was the first black member of the Ohio State Legislature. He was a historian. He was a journalist. And as a journalist, he was somebody who was sort of doing a number of other projects as well. But as a journalist, he went to the Congo in 1890. Having met and interviewed King Leopold in Brussels, been charmed by him, went to Africa expecting to find this philanthropic enterprise, and instead he found what he described as the Siberia of the African continent. And he wrote an open letter to King Leopold, which he managed to get published in many European and American newspapers. That was a complete expose. It was not a long article, maybe 10,000 words, but it was the first published expose of this system of forced labor. Williams also seems to have been the first foreign visitor to the Congo, the first European or American visitor, who actually asked Africans what was their experience of the white colonists. This was published in 1890. It caused quite a bit of a storm, quite a bit of controversy. Very sadly, Williams died the following year on his way home from Africa and never lived to write the book that he'd been planning to write about the Congo. But he was the first dissenting voice in the outside world.